Welcome to the Becoming You show, where limits get torched and possibility takes the mic. I'm Leah Rowling, human in permanent beta, neurostrategist, mom to 3 amazing humans, married to 1 legendary soul, and your no fluff permission slip to stop waiting. Every week, we rewire brain patterns, smash hand-me-down mindsets, and dive into the daring, identity-shifting conversations most people dodge. Ready to turn potential into proof? Grab your pen. Your next chapter starts now. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Becoming You show. I am your host, Leah Rowling, and I am so glad that you're tuning in to this conversation today. We are entering kind of the final stretch of this year. And today's episode is going to be a different kind of conversation that we've had before. It's not a recap episode. It's not a reminder, a friendly reminder type of episode. This is a wake up episode because the year that you're about to live, right? Next year, it's already being shaped right now. It's being shaped by your identity, your character, your mindset, your energy, your patterns, the things that you haven't slowed down long enough to look at, the things that we have had conversations on the show around. And so my goal today is really, really simple. It's to help you see what's actually running your life so that you can consciously decide what runs it in 2026. Because when you can see what's running it, you get to decide, and that's going to be a big word today. You get to choose, you get to decide what you A, want to continue to run, B, what you want to stop running, or C, what you want to start running. But before we get into all of that, I really want to bring forward the truth about why people don't change, okay? That's what we're going to talk about first. Why people don't change, okay? Most people don't need more time. Most people don't need more discipline. Most people don't even need more motivation. Right? When you think about it, when you read all the change books on all the habits and how to create transformation in your life, those are the things they talk about, right? Time management, discipline, compliance, and motivation. I'm going to argue that today. What they need, what you need, my beautiful friend, is space. Okay? Space. Hold with me just a minute. You need witnessing. You need reflection. You need structure. You need support. I think the reason people repeat the same year over and over and over and over again is because they are consistently in their life, never on their life, right? They're reacting, they're responding, they're adjusting, they're firefighting, they're navigating, they're surviving, but they're not architecting. And you cannot build a life that you never step outside of long enough to see. The same thing is true for businesses, right? If you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, there is a rhythm, if you will, of working not just in the business, but there is a rhythm, a very strong invitation to work on the business. Because if you don't, right? If you don't, that business will just continue to repeat itself. If we started thinking about our life like a business, I believe we would have more progress. Why would we have more progress? Because we would be asked, invited, quote unquote, forced to work on it. Okay? So that's the one reason I believe that people don't get the change that they want. It's not because they don't know what to do. If I asked you what you wanted for your life this year, right? And or what you want for 2026, as that's coming around, you probably know what you want. And you probably even know, if I were to ask this question, what do you need to do in order to get what you want? You probably even know the exact things that you know to do in order to get what you want. Knowledge is not the problem, right? Working on it, having space to witness, to reflect, to actually create structure and support, to work on what it is that you want is 99% of the time, we're just working in our life. We just rinse, repeat, go through the motion, wake up, go to bed. This podcast is a conversation about what it could look like if we spent just a beat working on our life. Okay? So I want to talk about identity for a moment because I think it's really important. You don't behave from your goals, right? You behave from your identity, right? I kind of just mentioned that at the very beginning. We don't get what we know. We don't get the results just because we know what to do in order to get the results. We get the results because we have a thinking, feeling, identity state that makes those results inevitable. And then you're not tied to willpower. You're not tied to motivation because it's inherent in who it is that you are. Right? Because no matter how hard you try, right? No matter how many good hacks that you create and pick up on, you will always default to the level of self-concept you hold. So if your identity is exhausted, if your identity is overwhelmed, if your identity is under-supported or unclear, your outcomes will reflect exactly that. Your 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 life is a reflection of who you are, not as much as what it is that you do, although that shows up in your results. Okay. This is why, friends, people plateau, not because they're incapable, but because they're unsupported, because they haven't spent a beat working on their life, working on who they are, working on that next level of identity that is required to take the action in order to get the result that they want. You can only expand as much as your identity has the capacity to hold. So we get to reinvent this identity. We get to explore the capacity of what's possible, not what was, right? I want you to take into this next year a level of possibility that you didn't even know existed. I don't want you to use your past to beat yourself up on what is true for you. What happened in the past, right? Whether or not you've accomplished something that you wanted in the past is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. There's no potential there. There's only the potential in this now moment in time where you get to choose and you get to decide in a different possibility for your life. Okay? So it's important that we work on our life. It's important that we reimagine and re-decide the identity that's required. And we practice that identity every bit as much as we practice the behaviors that are required. Because when you practice the identity, the action just becomes second nature. That habit becomes second nature. It's because it's who you are. And so then we get to talk about that next point that I brought forward as to why it is that I believe that people don't make the progress or make the change or have the outcomes that they want, the results that they want, the achievements that they want. And that's because there's a cost, beautiful friends, of doing this life alone, right? I do want to talk to you about this. It's tender, and it's tender on purpose because life is hard when you do it alone, right? Not because you're weak, but because you're human. Reflection doesn't happen alone. Accountability doesn't happen alone. Elevation doesn't happen alone. And when I look back at the biggest shifts of my life, I never did them from isolation, right? And I am a type A accomplisher, refuser of delegating, thinking that I can do it all myself. And that got me exhausted and miserable and tired and frustrated, right? The biggest shifts in my life happened when I did them when I was being held, when I was being held by a coach, when I was being witnessed, when I was being supported, when I was being challenged, when I was being reminded who I was. Whether that was my mom reminding me of my possibility, of my potential, whether that was my husband, those are my kids, or my coaching community, my masterminds, whatever it was a reminder of who I am. Because if we are not witnessed, if we're not supported, if we're not challenged, we will forget. We will forget the greatness that we are. We will forget. Support in this life for you, support in this life for me is not a luxury. It's structure. It's the architect of identity. So what does that mean for you? Right? Why do you deserve a new approach next year? Here's what I know. Next year will not reward hustle. How do I know this is true? Because I coach hundreds and thousands of people. I coach myself. And I used to take the hustle approach. I'll just work harder, double down, do more, do more. But rarely do the work of being more. That's the work of identity. Because when you work at the identity level, you don't have to hustle as hard. You don't have to white knuckle everything and bring discipline and motivation into everything. It's just an extension of who you've naturally become, right? So it's not going to reward more hustle. Listen to me. If hustle worked, and I'm talking to you, type A overachiever, friend of mine that I love. If hustle worked, you'd already have what you wanted, right? You would already have what you wanted. It will also not reward massive levels of like high structured, high intensity. Okay? Think about it. You've already brought forward the hustle and you've added this level of intensity to it. How has that worked? How has that worked? What I know is that it will reward clarity, thinking on purpose. It will reward stability. It will reward emotional mastery. It will reward identity alignment, aligning what it is that you want in your life with who it is that's required, who your future is asking you to step into. That it will reward. But more hustling in the same identity is not going to get you change. It's just going to get you burned out, frustrated, annoyed, exhausted, wondering why it is that it works for everybody else but not for you. That's not the life. That's not the year that I want you to step into next year. It will reward intentional energy. It will reward a grounded inner world. Listen, the world is getting noisier, right? Your nervous system is under more demand than ever before. Distractions are everywhere. Opportunities to judge every swipe, every scroll, every comment, every share. All of that judgment creates more division. The cost of being reactive, aka not intentional, is rising. So the value then of intentionality is skyrocketing. It's going to that next level. This is the year where I'm inviting you to consider that your internal world becomes your competitive advantage. Because if you can master your energy, if you can regulate your emotions, if you can commit to your commitments, that's an identity characteristic of integrity. If you can master your clarity, thinking on purpose, if you can master your consistency, everything externally becomes easier. Everything. Your health becomes easier. Your wealth becomes easier. Your relationships become easier. Your purpose, the legacy that you live and leave, easier. Everything. So I want to bring forward a story. I just got home from Dubai with my kiddo, and it it was absolutely incredible. And I don't have enough time to really share forward with you all of the leadership nuances and all of the journaling, the notes that I captured as I experienced every single minute and hour of every day that I was over there. But if there was just one little piece that I want to pull in, at least to this conversation, it's that being in Dubai reminded me of something that I think we all forget. And that is that possibility is not a fantasy. It's not a fantasy. It's not something out there in dream world that's unaccessible, that's unattainable. It's a frequency. I want you to consider that the entire city, the entire state, the entire palm is built on one belief. I want you to think about that for a minute. Let that just sink in. Dubai didn't start as this unbelievable skyline. It started as sand and water. Sand, water. Nothing fancy, nothing certain, just sand. Just sand, water, and vision. And I think that's true for us. Most of what we want starts in a place that looks pretty bare, right? We've got no proof, just like Dubai, no proof that a city, a state could rise up out of nothing. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means that we're all at the beginning of a journey, right? Dubai didn't look like this 20 or even 30 years ago. It was mostly sand. The Palm, Jumeirah, where we stayed, was created again from belief 6 years later. Went from water to wow. From what was once impossible to a reality, which proves something really important. You don't need the perfect starting point. You just need direction and follow through. And if a desert, like this is the thought that kept coming, it kept ringing into me, right? Again, I'm in this work of enrolling people in possibility and potential and leadership and trying to invite people into a life that is led consciously, intentionally. So when I was out there, right? If a desert can become this, if the palm can become what it is in 6 years, imagine what's possible for you to build in 1 year of your life. If that was built in 6 from a vision and a belief, what can you build in your life when you actually work on it? Before Dubai became a state, before the Palm became what it is, right? It was a possibility to choose from. There was nothing to work in. Rather, everything to work on. That's why I'm inviting you to work on your life this year instead of just in it. I want you to also know that if you can imagine it, you can create it. I don't believe that nudges of more for your life that you have, maybe you've dismissed, maybe you can't connect to the frequency of it, but I promise you, if it's there, and it is, you can create it. I don't believe it's random. I believe it's yours when you're ready. Right? And walking through that reality, that knowing that that nudge is yours, you kind of feel it. And then you kind of realize how much we shrink our lives, how much we underestimate. That's also what I thought about. I'm on the patio of our home or of our hotel room, overlooking the sea, overlooking the skyline. And I just kept thinking, wow, 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 how much we underestimate what's possible. What's possible for us in this next year? What's possible for us in this lifetime? What's possible for us in this day, in this moment right now? And how much we live inside old identity constraints that were never actually ours. And so again, we get to remember that our life expands when we do. Our identity expands when our environment expands. When we participate with other people, right? And our environment expands when we put ourselves in rooms that stretch us, when we put ourselves in spaces and states like Dubai that stretch us, that remind us that maybe I'm living my life just too small, right? Maybe I'm living my life too small. What would it look like to be a witness to my own poem, to see what I can build for my life next year? And I want to give you that same invitation, right? Not a pitch, not a push, just an invitation to a possibility. So I'm hosting, right, a live webinar, like, because this journey, this experience got me so fired up about this concept that I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a live webinar, and I'm walking each of you through something powerful that we've been building behind closed doors for 2026. It's called the Inner Lab Membership. Okay. This isn't just a sign up for a membership moment, right? It's an invitation into a year where you have all of the components that I just shared with you on this podcast that are important, that are required, not because you're weak, not because you couldn't do it alone, but because that next version of you needs that environment to grow into, to expand into, to have shared belief for you to adopt. Because as I mentioned, the world is noisy and the world can be distracting. So this is an invitation into our lab, right? And I love that it's called a lab because we get to work on our life in the lab. The lab becomes our chemistry playground for what we want to design in this next year. In it, you'll have structure, you'll have accountability, you'll have support, you'll have monthly frameworks, you'll have tools, you'll have identity calibration, meaning that we will continue to be that reflection of who you can be. We'll invite your future to where you are so that you can see it for yourself. You will have community. You will have a place, again, to work on your life, not just survive it. I genuinely believe this to be true. If you want your life to change, we've got to stop trying to do it alone, right? And this is the space that I have built for that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But more importantly, We have a webinar, right? The link is going to be in the show notes. But in this webinar, whether or not you decide to join us next year for the Inner Lab membership, that's completely up to you, and that invitation will always be open for you. This is the webinar where we're going to talk about and we're going to create for you the identity blueprint. You're going to have a workbook, a work packet on not just what you want in your life, not just what are the things you have to do in order to get what it is that you want in your life, because I'm guessing you already know that. We're going to go one step further. It is the step that most people miss when we talk about goal achievement. It's that identity creation. We are going to reinvent and re-inspire and re-invoke an identity, and we're going to practice that more than we're going to practice all the things that you think that you have to do for the next year. Okay? So you are not meant to repeat the same year again. I don't care if the year was the best year ever. I don't care if it was the worst year ever. Either way, you are not supposed to repeat it. You are not meant to shrink to your circumstances. You are not meant to stay in survival mode. Your life is asking more from you. Not more effort, but more intention. 2026 is not going to be a year of random outcomes. I want you to declare that right now. Whether you do the webinar, whether you do the membership, I want you to declare that right now. 2026, your next year, is not going to be a year of random outcomes. It's going to be a year of consciously created ones. And I would love to help you build it, right? I would love to help you build that. So if you need support, if you want support, if you want accountability, if you want the tools of identity reinvention, join us, sign up for the webinar, join us. If you can't make it, you'll get the replay, okay? Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for deciding that 2026 is not going to be left to random outcomes. I want you to write that down, okay? Thank you for listening. I hope to see you inside the webinar, and I'll see you next week. If this episode cracked something open, good. Let it. And then head to leahrollingcoaching.com and grab the tools to rewire the story and reclaim your future. It is yours. And then share this with someone who's still waiting to be chosen, still waiting for permission, and remind them they don't need a breakthrough, that they are the breakthrough. Until next time, my beautiful friends, invest in you and keep becoming.